Hello, everyone, and welcome back to CTOCon 2023. What a conference it's been so far, with some riveting discussions taking place on some key topics. And keeping in line with that, we're back again with yet another really exciting talk that I, for one, am really happy to be moderating today. The topic of discussion for today is going to be driving innovation through leadership. We'll be exploring and discussing the best practices for leading teams and organizations towards innovation by fostering a culture of experimentation, continuous learning, and encouraging out of the box thinking. This topic is a really important one, especially in today's world, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce the panelists that we have today with us. Uh, we have Mr. Venki Ayalur, who is founder and CTO of Blendid, and we have Anton Pleshivtsev, who is VP of Engineering at Bravado. Gentlemen, it's so great to have you here. Thank you so very much for your time. We'd love to hear your introduction from yourselves as well. So, Anton, if you could start.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. My name is Anton. I am VP of Engineering at Bravado. Bravado is a social network for salespeople, actually the biggest one. And we are creating the whole ecosystem. And sometimes when I have to explain what it is, I just say that Bravado for sales is like GitHub for engineers. So we have like professional portfolio, hiring platform, and some tools for improving their professional skills, learning base, so like a lot of stuff. Before leading the engineering stuff at Bravado, which I'm doing for 6 years already, I was working at a company called Sales, or another brand is known as JetRadar, which is a travel search engine, and I was leading the development of a front end of this platform.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much, Anton. Venki, over to you.
Thank you, Zain. Thank you for a kind introduction. I mean, great to be here. Anton, good to meet you. Good to learn from you also as part of this panels. Venki Ayalur, co-founder and CTO of Blendid. Blendid, we make a robotic kiosk that makes smoothies. It's a fully autonomous kiosk where people can walk in, take their mobile phone or use a tablet on the kiosk, place their orders, and the robot builds a smoothie for them. We have deployed and we are in 10 locations across the nation, which is the US, in colleges, cafeterias, supermarkets, hospitals, and so on. We are, busily growing at this stage. We've been Blendid. We co-founded Blendid 7 years ago. It's been a great journey. From the beginning of the inception or the initial foundations of the company to where it is right now. It's been a great journey. Prior to Blendid, I was at Nook, Barnes & Noble, where we built e-readers. So, most of you are familiar. I led the software development there. Prior to that, I was at Motorola. If you are used to Motorola cell phones, I probably had played some part or the other in most of the cell phones that made by Motorola. So yeah, great to be here. Good to be part of the discussion.
Fantastic. It's a pleasure to have you both, and rightly so, because you're doing some really innovative work, and we're here to talk about innovation. And so, I guess without further ado, we'll jump right in. I'll start with the first question. So, what are some of the key strategies and tactics that leaders can use to foster innovation within their organizations? Right? What are like some of the things, some of the tactics, some of the best practices that you can use to foster the actual culture of innovation? Venki, if you would like to go first.
Yeah, when we talk about innovation, at least the way that I look at innovation is there are two major types of innovations. One is what I would call as a revolutionary, like very disruptive innovation. The second is more evolutionary. We don't have to say that, hey, one is good, better than the other. It just really depends on the type of organization and what we are innovating for, right? At Blendid, when we started the company, it was more revolutionary. We wanted to disrupt the food tech. It's a very, very different type of innovation, whereas now we have 10 kiosks and we are growing from 10 to 30. The types of innovation that we do are very different. So it is it is not from a strategy perspective, although I'll kind of go over the strategy, it is not one size fits all. And it does change depending on the company, the state type of the company, and many aspects to it. But in general, I would say the first and foremost is the culture for innovation. I think that people underestimate how hard is to, especially if you are dealing with a company that is already founded and established, changing the culture and bringing that culture for innovation is pretty hard. But and I think that's probably the first strategy to focus on. How do we make the organization to be ready for innovation, right? Then, of course, once you have the culture, then build the teams and have the right collaborative environment, because innovation is usually a collection of people sharing bright ideas and smart people working together. And I think that is fundamentally critical. And also setting a clear organizational vision. Basically, what are we after? I think that is another one that I would say is important when you think about strategy for how we want to innovate. Few things that we typically pass over is, it is many times, especially in big companies, we talk about innovation, but innovation has to go with the right resources and support, right? Because if you don't people, the right kind of a rewards and support structure, it's hard to innovate. So I think these are probably, I would say, 2 to 3 are top areas of strategy to focus on when you're innovating. So Anton, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, so I would say, in my opinion, the most important thing here is transparency, and the fact that everyone understands why we need to innovate, where we need to innovate, and what solutions we need to develop and think about. And my kind of key strategy here is related to the fact that engineers are mostly very curious people. They like to learn new things. They like to read stuff. They like to run experiments, benchmarks, measure results. And the strategies that I like a lot is called Sowing the Seed. It's when I can pick a few people who I trust a lot, and I think they can innovate, they can bring something new, they can improve existing stuff. I talk to them, explaining the need without any rush. It's not like tomorrow we need to start innovating. I'm just explaining them the problem. Like, we are becoming slower, we are experiencing some high load, or the framework that we are using for running the process is not efficient enough. And then I give them enough time to think. And in like 99% cases, in a few weeks, they come back to me and they're like, well, I think I know what to do. I know what solution. There are many solutions, but this is the perfect. I built like proof of concept with this one. This is how it works. I can do some kind of internal talk. So this actually uses the best from people, their curiosity, their desire to learn, they are their feeling of something new. So this helps a lot. So people will naturally bring back to you the result. Another this is mentioning 2 practices that help to support this Sowing the Seed thing, which is first internal meetups, something that it's kind of technical conference, but which is happening inside the company, so that everyone can feel comfortable of sharing their knowledge, presenting something, and more importantly, selling something. Because if there is a new idea, it will definitely face some resistance. Some people will say, we don't want to do this, this is too new, we don't like this. And the person bringing the idea should be able to sell it and to convince everyone this is the right direction to move to. There are a few more practices, but I think I will just share them when we continue this discussion.
All right. I think you mentioned some fantastic points, Anton, and I'll actually pick something from there, and we can continue the discussion. How do you effectively communicate, right? How do you effectively communicate and promote like the value of innovation and like triggering innovation within your organization. Communication like has a lot to do with it. How you actually go about it. You mentioned sowing the seed. That's a nice strategy that you mentioned. Anything else that leaders can keep in mind as to how they can communicate and get everybody on board? Sorry.
I think I have only one point here. So the need of innovation should be transparent and obvious for everyone. It's not that I'm coming and saying, "Hey, let's do something new." It's about showing metrics, showing results, showing KPIs, showing how we are working, and this is not by presentations. It's real tools, tracking things in real time, so that I can open and share it for the whole team and show them, hey, this is the response time 2 months ago. This is the response time today. This is the release cycle, like 6 months. And this is 6 months back in the time, and this is the release cycle today. So you should basically make it obvious that there is, first of all, there is a need for change, and secondly, there is a need for innovation. And this makes people convinced that there is a need for something new and something different. Venki, you have your point of view?
I mean, I agree with you, Anton. I think it was great points. I mean, sowing the seed is very important, and how we communicate that sowing of the seed and how does it take effect in an organization is very critical, right? And also, I would say it really depends on the organization. It depends on the size of the organization. Let's assume my prior Motorola world is big company, where how you communicate, an innovation and need for a change is very, very different than Blendid, which is a much smaller company where it is a lot easier to some degree, right? So how we communicate really, it depends on the size of the company and what innovation we are trying to do. But I do agree. I mean, you have to plant the seed, and there's high touch and low touch. I mean, you meet with the team. I mean, Anton mentioned about, hey, meetups, and I think clearly setting the goal to the team is very, very important, right? They need to know what problem they are solving, right? What are they innovating on, and what's the value that it generates, right? I think the once they get it, and we can take countless examples, right? If I take a Blendid example, we are doing smoothies, and let's say I pick a different category of food, right? So let's say I want to make soups. I mean, if I just communicate that, it's a very different message versus, and I say, hey, I just want to dispense products better, right? I think there are very different types of innovation. It's not that one is better than, worse or other. It really depends on the problem and how clearly we communicate to the team, right? And that goes to the planting the seed. How do you structure this? And I mean, there has to be some type of a thought that needs to be put in as leaders in terms of how we want to effectively manage this.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. You both make some really interesting points, and we were talking about this in a separate panel the other day, where the current Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, when he joined Microsoft, they weren't doing too well, and so he mentions in his book that innovation started with him using the words Office, AI, and cloud in the same sentence in the same office, like Anton mentioned, sowing the seed. It comes in slowly and steadily. But Venki, I think you made another really interesting point about the size of organizations. Right, some organizations are too big to undergo drastic change, and or even if they do end up changing, it's just too slow or too resistant to adopting new things. So how can leaders within these organizations navigate, firstly within their organizations, and secondly the organization's political and cultural landscape? Like how does all of this take place within a bigger company?
Yeah, bigger companies are hard by definition, right? The smaller the team is, it's easier in a way, right? You can energize the team much better, it's easier. And when you have a bigger team, it also location matters, right? I mean, take Motorola as an example. My time at Motorola, it was worldwide. how do you communicate the same message across the entire world and make sure everybody, drives? So it is a little tricky, but again, it kind of goes back to the same strategy, right? Where you want to have a simple message to the team to say, what are they innovating on, and what is the purpose of the innovation, and what's the value that they bring, right? And of course, you can have your email communications, because it's impractical to meet with everybody, but you can actually make, physical visits that usually that matters a lot. As leaders traveling to a country and then meeting with the team and then going through the need for the innovation, it motivates a team significantly. And then it's actually fascinating when smaller teams has a lot of charm. I love smaller teams, but bigger teams have a different advantage where, because just the sheer number of people, if people are motivated, the kind of thing that they come up with is just fascinating. Right? So it's a combination of physically traveling and meeting with the team, right? And emails and remote. These days with Zooms and Google Meets and many other meeting tools. How do you actually put it all together, and how do you divide and conquer so that people get it? The message is not lost. Sometimes you do town halls, sometimes you do independent meetings. So it's a combination of the strategies that you follow.
Fantastic. Anton, same question. Yeah.
So I had a chance to practice both styles, like big and small, because we had layoff in December. So before the layoff, the team was pretty big, and this was a challenge. Right now, the team is smaller. Let me start from the current state. So currently, it is, as Venki mentioned, it's pretty easy when the team is small. The communication is way simpler, and you can easily get everyone on a call, let them share their opinion, discuss, and make a decision. And another interesting practice here is running clubs. For example, we are running a book club. We are picking some book, we are reading this book, and a month later, usually a month is a good time to let everyone finish the book, because people are busy, they have some vacations and stuff. So as practice shows, month should be enough. And then 1 month later, everyone gets on a call, and we are running a special meeting format similar to Retro. So people are posting things they like about the book, people they don't like about things written in the book, and then we prioritize them and we discuss. And so this, for example, this was the first thing that helped us to start introducing Kanban transformation. Moving from Scrum to Kanban is always facing some resistance, some misunderstanding. People try to work with something that they know about. And so we kind of started from the book club, from reading and from sharing our experience. And by starting with this, I noticed people become excited about potential improvements that Kanban can bring, because the book explains how it can, reduce your cycle time, how it can help you to save time on planning, how it can make the team more motivated. And I noticed when we just started the book club, people were like, no, Kanban is something weird. But even after the first discussion, after the first book we finished, the team was like, wow, this is exciting. I want to try some practices. This is so cool. And so this is for the smaller team. For a bigger team, I think you're just picking the strategy of getting this smaller group of people. In my case, it was a group of eng managers, and each manager has their own direct reports. And of course, you cannot invite like 50 people for the discussion, but you can invite their leaders, and you can make them share their experience and their results and experiments. Like one manager tried something and it was successful, manager shares with others. Others become excited and they introduce this practice. Or another example is when someone tries something new and then this thing doesn't work, And this is also great. This is also a result. This is also worth sharing with others, and others can discuss, maybe suggest solutions, or maybe just learn and say, this is great, we will just not use this thing. So larger groups, you need to pick leaders and spend more time with them, and then let them spend time with their teams. Or smaller groups, you just invite everyone, run book clubs, discussions, meetings, and formats that let people express their opinion and do some knowledge exchange.
Great, fantastic. That's some great information. So all of this comes with its set of challenges, of course. There are risks involved with innovation, with taking risks themselves. What would you say are some of the common barriers that leaders in innovation or innovation leaders within organizations face? Venki, we'll start with you.
The most common barrier is people don't like change. I mean, people are used to, especially this is so true in bigger companies, right? People are used to a way of working. You're innovating for a reason, and the reason could be, it depends on the organization. People don't like a change. So just again, it again goes back to how do you clearly communicate the value of innovation, what they're innovating on, that typically gets them over that problem, right? The second biggest thing that people are afraid in our barrier is people are afraid to fail in general. We underestimate humans' tendencies to face failures, and people are not everybody takes risks the same way, right? The individuals' risk tolerance levels are different, right? And I think it is important to communicate. It is okay to fail. I mean, because if you don't fail, it's kind of harder to innovate. I mean, if I just take myself, the failures have taught me way more than the successes, right? So, I mean, you do learn a lot, and innovation typically comes with failures, and it is okay to fail. Just communicating that, and as long as you allow them to fail and then learn from the failure and innovate, I mean, on top of the failure, I think that's kind of. But I mean, I would say these are. I mean, of course, a lot of times, I mean, we don't give them the right resources. I mean, that becomes a barrier, but that is more a leader's problem, not the team's issue. So, I mean, I would say I think these are top few barriers. What do you think, Anton?
So I think I can just share some just general tricks to make people more comfortable with failing, and for people to make them more comfortable to take a risk. So first of all, we never start without proof of concept. Proof of concept is like test drive. You will never go and buy a car for like $100,000 without test driving it, without like watching YouTube videos of people reviewing this car, maybe asking your friend to drive their own car and sharing their experience. Similar happens with innovation. Some technologies or principles or frameworks are so complicated, you will have to invest months of time to implement them. And if in result of this few months you see that it's not working, or working not as efficient as you expected it to be, then you're in trouble, right? So we are always starting with small proof of concept, usually like 3-7 days of time of 1-2 engineers. And these engineers make something quick and dirty. So some experiment that can show that the idea is viable, we can work with that, we can educate people, like they can also share their experience. Of course, the result can be that we cannot move with this technology. This is also happening. This is great result, actually. If you manage to find the problem with technology on a proof of concept stage, this is great. Then you should just pick something else. Another thing which also makes it extremely comfortable for people to move forward with innovation is sharing of responsibility. Of course, you can let someone make a decision and start introducing something new, but if it is a decision made by one person, this person holds the whole responsibility for the decision, innovation, and the result. And this person feels like being under an extreme pressure. But if you make this person share their results, their ideas, if you make them convince more people, then you basically make them share the responsibility for, ideally, for the whole group of people. Like when we started the Kanban transformation, almost every engineer was convinced that this is the right way to move, and this is something that will help us to improve our metrics. So instead of being me just making a decision for the whole engineering organization, it was the whole organization moving towards this direction. And sharing responsibility is kind of nice psychological trick to make people feel more comfortable about what they do. Also, there is something like sharing the effort or supporting the effort, because some people will enjoy working on something alone, but usually you need to increase the buzz factor number, and you just need more people to be involved. This is of course related to sharing the responsibility, but sharing the effort is something that kind of help people to feel more supported and feel that they're working within a group of others motivated professionals.
Great. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So we have time to slip in one last question. Let me see. We'll do a good one. Right. So the economic times are tough, right? It's not easy for anybody to be doing business out there right now, let alone tech companies. Um, so is it important to even keep innovating in these economic times, or like how do you balance out the threshold of burning cash with innovating? Because at the same time, there's thousands of examples of companies that died or failed because they did not innovate, right? So how do you navigate that fine line in these economic times? Venki, would you like to go first?
Absolutely. I think innovation never stops. The moment you stop innovating, your business stops. I think that's kind of how I would put it. So economic times, in fact, the harder the economic times, the need for innovation is even greater, right? Because it's all about productivity. You want to do more with less, right? That's the hard truth of, I mean, tougher economic times. So you have to innovate even in, I mean, this is kind of, I mean, in a situation like this, I mean, we do go through it even today, right? Which is, I mean, you are constrained, I mean, for the nature of, I mean, where we are. I mean, on one side, the demand for our products is growing because need for automation and AI is just growing exponentially. On the other side, the financial side is always the trickier proposition. So we just, I mean, this is the time where we need to innovate, be more efficient, right? And then come up with better products that serves greater community. So this is, I mean, I kind of take these as opportunities to innovate, and not to say, hey, do not innovate. Right? So, I mean, innovation stops, company stops pretty much.
Well said. Well said. Anton.
Yeah, I totally agree with this idea. So hard times produce strong people, right? So you're kind of forced to think about more efficient solutions, something new, like new approaches. It's like sometimes it's even impossible to solve your problem or achieve your desired result without innovating and doing something new, right? So totally agree, and I'm not sure I can say something different here.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess companies just need to balance the financials with the innovation side, and you're right. Innovation can completely change the direction of a company as well. And like Venki said, if innovation stops, the company stops. Gentlemen, it was an absolute pleasure hosting you today. Before we sign off, any final words from you guys? Anything you'd like to say?
No, I mean, it's an absolute pleasure, Zain. Thanks for organizing it, and it was great to share I mean, the wisdom that we have gathered over a period of time. I mean, pleasure. I mean, having the chat. Good to meet you, Anton.
Yeah, I was excited to meet you also, Venki. And thanks for having me, Zain. And as a bottom line, I can just say that I think the idea that Venki mentioned, like if innovation stops, your organization stops, is the main one. So you should never stop bringing something new and
Yeah, well said, guys. Well said. Thank you so much. And with that, we will end today's session. It was great having you, and thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your day.
thank you very much.
Thank you.